I'm so ignorant, I didn't know that the internationally accepted 12 nautical mile territorial waters were actually created by Chairman Mao and became an international rule. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea stipulates that the area extending 12 nautical miles vertically from the coastline, or the near-shore islands to which the country belongs, to the sea is the territorial sea of the country. But it is estimated that many people do not know that the number that has been written into the convention is not so easy to determine. In the article shared today, I will talk to you about the origin of the 12 nautical miles, and see how Chairman Mao expanded China's territorial waters from 3 nautical miles to 12 nautical miles. The area of China's oceans and land has been enlarged by more than 4 times. 1. Oceans and land expanded fourfold. The width of China's territorial sea is 12 nautical miles. All foreign aircraft and military ships are not allowed to enter China's territorial waters and the air above them without permission. This is the statement Chairman Mao asked the central government to release to the world, September 4, 1958. As soon as the statement is out, the great powers immediately exploded, and the United States was indeed even crazier. On September 8, the U.S. warship N'Jiang's warship sailed within 12 nautical miles. The United States never expected that as soon as the U.S. entered the 12 nautical mile territorial waters, the artillery of the People's Liberation Army rushed in. The 2 warships were hit and caught fire. Honestly, exit to 12 nautical miles. Why do the great powers want to fry the pot? Chairman Mao's decision to expand China's territorial waters from 3 nautical miles to 12 nautical miles has increased the size of the ocean and land by more than 4 times. The Bohai Bay, the Kiangsu Strait and many islands have been included in China's internal seas, and the ownership and sovereignty of the islands in the South China Sea have been re-established. It's really a big deal that shocked the world. The cause was just a few days ago on August 23, 1958, the bombardment of Kinmen Island began. The U.S. 7th Fleet wandered around, pretending to be big and scaring China, while thinking about supplying Chiang Kai-shek. On September 1, Chairman Mao held a meeting to discuss the issue of the breadth of China's territorial waters. Previously, China's sea power was 3 nautical miles, but Chairman Mao wanted to expand it to 12 nautical miles. In the final analysis, agreeing to 3 nautical miles is still afraid of opposition from European and American countries. Chairman Mao said, "Everyone, the Hague Agreement is not an imperial decree. Judging from all aspects, the war will not be fought for a while. We don't want to fight. They are imperialists. Even if they fight us, we don't have to be afraid. We have already competed, and we are not afraid to accompany us again. Since our coastal defense guns only have a range of about 12 nautical miles, we will use 12 nautical miles and declare it to the world." On September 4, the bombardment of Quemoy was stopped on this day, and China declared to the world, the territorial sea of the People's Republic of China is 12 nautical miles wide. All foreign aircraft and military ships are not allowed to enter China's territorial waters and its territory without the permission of the Chinese government. Above. This statement directly tells the United States and the United Kingdom. If you dare to cross the bottom line of 12 nautical miles, you can greet them with cannons. Chairman Mao never fought unprepared battles, and these decisions were the result of careful consideration. Chairman Mao asked Premier Zhou to invite the famous jurist Ni Zhenjiao the day before the bombardment of Kinmen, August 22, to consult China on the issue of territorial waters. Ni Zhenjiao is a master of jurisprudence with international status. He has participated in the trial of Japanese Class A war criminals by the International Military Tribunal for the Far East. When Chairman Mao asked how wide China's territorial waters should be, Ni Zhenjiao suggested nautical miles. Ni Zhenjiao said, in the first international law conference in 1930, most of the more than 40 countries participating in the conference did not advocate the adoption of 3 nautical miles. However, rogue countries such as Britain and the United States and Japan, which was very arrogant at the time, forced all countries to abide by the width of 3 nautical miles. They posted to the world, this is the only standard for the width of territorial waters. The width of the territorial sea of 3 nautical miles originated in the 18th century, when the artillery range was 3 nautical miles. This was the earliest prototype of the truth is within the range of the cannon. This territorial sea width is the rule set by the European and American sea kings for weak countries with their powerful naval strength. This rule has been used from the 18th century to the 1950s. It was Chairman Mao who suspended the Kinmen artillery battle, and with a wave of his hand, ended this century-old rule. After listening to the history and reality told by Ni Zhenjiao, Chairman Mao said with a smile, "It seems that for the sake of national security and prosperity, there should be a wider territorial sea." Chairman Mao has made up his mind to change the rules of the world. To changing the world's sea power. Back then, whether in the Qing dynasty or the Republic of China, the 3 nautical mile territorial sea rule was basically useless, and British, French, American, and Russian warships drove straight into China's waters and even inland rivers. After the Korean War, the US military sent a fleet to interfere with the liberation of the Southeast Island by force. At the same time, the British warships did not listen to advice and sailed into the Yangtze River openly. Chairman Mao was very angry. Chairman Mao believes that it is necessary to end the history of the sea without defense. The US and UK can set the 3 nautical mile rule, why can't I? Chairman Mao really didn't like so there was a Chinese version of "the truth is within the range of the cannon" with the territorial waters of 12 nautical miles. Even the homestead wall of our own country is not clear, and the US and British warships have sailed to the gate of China to show off their power. If there is no clear legal basis, how can we defend our sovereignty over territorial waters? But politics and military affairs are complex. If you dare to do things, you must be able to do things, and you must be able to do things. First of all, Chairman Mao attaches great importance to national security. The war is imminent and the situation is pressing. During the Kinmen artillery battle, the shadows of American warships kept appearing. To counterattack the US military requires a clear statement, legal basis. Therefore, Chairman Mao raised the issue of territorial waters in time. Secondly, in terms of strategy and national interests, it is necessary to effectively limit the reckless actions of foreign military forces in China's coastal waters and airspace. For example, in 1953, the British warships directly entered the Pearl River estuary to provoke. Although they were disabled by me, they did not restrain themselves. Increasing the depth of security defense will have long-term and huge benefits for China, which has a long coastline. Third, China has the courage to fear nothing. The North Korean War has made the world look at China with admiration. China has the strength to defend its territorial waters. It's the sentence, "We must fight, we are not afraid." ZKMO has already fought, but that's it, we must be prepared for this. Fourth, this is the result of rational analysis and scientific decision-making. The main participants in the decision-making include Chairman Mao, Liu, Zhou, and Pen. Professional institutions such as Jiao Guanhua of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Huang Keqian of the General Staff, and Lei Yingfu, Minister of Operations. Legal experts Ni Zhenjiao, Lu Zirong, and Zhou Yanzheng. This was the decision made by Chairman Mao after earnestly seeking opinions and suggestions. In the end, Chairman Mao was as careful as a hare. He specifically asked and confirmed that the expansion of the territorial sea would not affect normal shipping. It not only jumped out of the old rules of the old regime, but also was reasonable and legal. Sure enough, after the release of the Chinese government's statement on September 4th, the international sea kings were blown up, and the United States was even more crazy. 3 days after the statement was issued, the US warship brought the Kuomintang warship into China's territorial waters. As soon as they crossed the line, the artillery of the People's Liberation Army hit it directly, and the US ship caught fire, so they had no choice but to flee or take the path that never suffers, bullies the weak and fears the hard. 24 years later, the United Nations Ocean Conference, 1982, decided to adopt the Chinese standard of 12 nautical miles of territorial waters. United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea stipulates, each country has the right to determine the width of its territorial sea. The convention stipulates that the width of territorial sea is 12 nautical miles, and countries should not exceed the limit of 12 nautical miles. That's it. China in the 1950s changed the sea power of the world. Chairman Mao expanded China's territorial waters from 3 nautical miles to 12 nautical miles, and increased the area of the country's oceans by more than 4 times. He also included Bohai Bay, Kiangsu Strait, and many islands in China's internal seas, and once again established the ownership and sovereignty of islands in the South China Sea. Such a bold and insightful big hand, the merit will last for thousands of years, and the value is extraordinary. Salute to the great man. With the rapid development of our country's economy, we are already in the leading position in many fields. In this context, our country's demand for resources is also increasing day by day. In order to meet the people's growing material needs, our country imports a large amount of resources from abroad on the one hand. On the one hand, actively carry out exploration in the country. Finally, the efforts will always be rewarded. The explorers have discovered amazing reserves of oil and natural gas in the South China Sea. South China Sea discovers oil and gas. The times are developing, and people's living standards are also constantly improving. My country has a population of 1.4 billion. Such a huge population base prompts my country to increase imports of resources from abroad every year, so as to meet the needs of people's lives. However, it has been importing from abroad resources are not a long-term thing. Therefore, our country has increased the exploration of domestic resources in recent years and gradually increased the exploitation of domestic resources to gradually get rid of the situation of relying on the international market. Through the continuous efforts of exploration personnel, oil and natural gas resources have been discovered in the South my country sea. After clear exploration, it has been proved that the oil and natural gas reserves in the South China Sea are very amazing. It is called the Second Persian Gulf. Such news has spread to the world. Immediately, there was an uproar, and they all sighed, "China is so lucky, God really loves the Chinese people." My country set up 20 big iron pots in the South China Sea. After our country discovered abundant resources in the South China Sea, it did not rush to exploit them. Instead, it built 20 big iron pots in the South China Sea, that is, 20 offshore floating nuclear power plants. The role of these 20 big iron pots is not that big. These can be used as a platform for our country to exploit resources, and can also provide strong backup for operations in the South China Sea. It is equivalent to 20 large power banks, which continuously provide sufficient power for the South China Sea area. The construction of offshore floating nuclear power plants is the basis for the development of the South my country sea, and it is also an important starter. While bringing sufficient electricity to the residents near the South China Sea, it can also indirectly stimulate the local tourism industry. It can be said that there are many benefits, and it can provide safety guarantee for offshore operations, even in extreme weather conditions. There is no need to worry. The 20 big iron pots set up by our country in the South China Sea made Western countries puzzled at first, but after they learned about the specific functions, they lamented that the wisdom of the Chinese people is too high, and they couldn't help it said, "This is Chinese power." After decades of development, our country has achieved cornering overtaking in many fields. It is by no means accidental that our country can achieve such a great achievement, but relying on the wisdom of our people and the unity of the people of the whole country, we have today great results. On May 30, 2023, Elon Musk, the head of Tesla, arrived in Beijing and started his first visit to China after 3 years. During this visit to China, the major issues in Musk's plan include expanding the Shanghai factory, building a second super factory in China, promoting the approval and application of fully autonomous driving in China, providing services for the Starlink satellite network in China, and responding to China's requirements implement major issues such as keeping the data of Tesla smart cars in China. At present, the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology of China is promoting the draft technical standards for data security of intelligent network vehicles, prohibiting China's smart cars from directly transmitting data abroad, and promoting smart car manufacturers to use domestic cloud services. The Starlink satellite network performed amazingly in the Ukrainian war, enabling the Ukrainian armed forces to transmit information in time to attack the Russian army. Starlink's military color is too strong, and China needs to be cautious if it introduces related services. As of now, there are more than 3,000 Starlink satellites in orbit. In the future, when the Starlink project is fully completed, there will be more than 40,000 communication satellites in low Earth orbit. However, don't worry, the Chinese version of the Starlink project is being stepped up. During Musk's visit to China, the Chinese side gave him a high-level reception, reflecting the importance he attaches to himself. In multiple articles, the Hantang think tank did not derogate Musk himself, but respected his scientific exploration spirit very much. In 2019, Tesla entered the darkest moment, production capacity was hindered, and the financial crisis was serious. American media, Wall Street, jointly shorted Tesla, advocating that Tesla will go bankrupt within a year. Tesla, who was precarious and with a bleak future, suddenly encountered a great savior from the Eastern world. At the critical moment, Shanghai stepped in to provide land, provide bank loans, and quickly build a Shanghai superfactory at the speed of China. It helped Tesla survive the Pepsi crisis by sending charcoal in the snow. From 2020 to 2021, the global new energy vehicle industry will enter unprecedented prosperity. Tesla's stock price skyrocketed nearly 20 times, and its market value topped $1 trillion. In the 2022 Forbes Global Rich List, Elon Musk is the world's richest man with a wealth of $219 billion. Musk turned salted fish in China and became the richest man in the world. The Chinese market has saved Tesla, and China is a prosperous place for Musk. Musk should thank China. At the beginning of 2023, Musk will be surpassed by the French luxury goods giant in the wealth list. Now that Musk has come to China, Tesla's stock has soared, and Musk's worth has once again jumped to the top of the world. On June 1st, the US Fortune magazine website reported that Elon Musk's total wealth surpassed the French luxury goods giant Bernard Arnault and regained the title of the world's richest man. Musk's current fortune is worth about $192.3 billion, while Arnault's is about $186.6 billion, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. China is Musk's treasure land, and it is true. In fact, there is no need for the Chinese to hate Musk. Musk is a successful capitalist who was born by chance in the turmoil. He was born in South Africa, and has no history or blood relationship with the two major capital camps of the American Anglo-Saxons and Jews. Assessed from the perspective of ideology, Musk expresses significantly differently from Anglo-Saxons and Jews. Musk's support for Trump, his unceremonious exposure of the Biden administration after the acquisition of Twitter, and his frenzy against Soros, the Jewish capital tycoon, show that Musk, like Trump, cannot integrate into the mainstream of the United States. Political circles. In today's American political arena, power is mainly in the hands of a group of octogenarians, which has led to American politics full of stale plots and dirty deals. This is exactly the characteristic of the American establishment. Everything is dealt with offstage and behind the scenes, covering up all the blood and filth. After US President Barack Obama left office in 2017, while President Trump relied on his influence on the internet to ascend to the presidency. If we continue to observe American politics, we will find that although Obama has left, the Democratic camp to which Obama belongs still firmly controls the deep power in the United States. This is the US shadow government, deep state, that Trump has been openly attacking. In essence, the actual controllers of the so-called shadow government are the Anglo-Saxon and Jewish capital alliances, and the platformers of the shadow government are representatives of the US political establishment, such as Clinton, Hillary, Pelosi, Biden, and Bush, who have been active in recent years. Major political leaders. After entering the 21st century, a large number of charismatic business leaders have emerged in the American business world, including Zuckerberg, Musk, and others. Zuckerberg and Musk, a group of technology tycoons, have received direct support from the US military after their fortunes, so their identities are by no means pure, and they will not only talk about business but not politics. Relatively speaking, Zuckerberg's involvement in American politics is relatively low-key, and he rarely makes political remarks. Musk is a typical performer personality, and he publishes his remarks on international social media almost all the time, with the purpose of expanding his influence and using his influence to influence the development of some major events. The world's largest satellite star chain system, the Starship project that is constantly advancing into space, and the world's largest social media Twitter have made Musk's influence flourish, and he has the ability to influence the US political situation. Even so, compared to the two major alliance systems of the United States, Musk's strength is as weak as an ant. It is no exaggeration to say that facing the Anglo-Saxons and the Jewish capital alliance, Musk may be assassinated at any time. Because his opponents are everywhere, and he is just a rootless duckweed with no backing. Musk is just a pawn used in the United States, and is the implementer used by the US military to implement various crazy military plans. This means that Musk will never be the master in the United States. Therefore, Musk slammed the air, and slammed Biden and the Jews from time to time. On May 16, 2023, after Soros's foundation was dumped Tesla stock, Musk tweeted that Soros criticized Soros, saying, "Soros reminds me of Magneto. Magneto is meant to be the character against humanity." For many years, Soros has been the talker of the world's Jewish financial circles. It's normal to say that, after all, He is 93 years old and has been in the financial circle for 70 years. Properly respected in the industry. As a rising star in the circle of American billionaires, Musk compared Soros to the supervillain Magneto, which means that Soros is the public enemy of mankind. This statement is extremely humiliating. The Jewish-controlled Western media generally believed that it was inappropriate for Musk to compare Soros with Magneto. The logical basis for Musk's criticism of Soros is Soros' Jewishness. Many netizens contacted Soros' previous actions and discussed the conspiracy theory of Jewish capitalists manipulating the world, which led to the word Jew being fired on the Twitter hot list. The U.S. Washington Post accused Musk of condoning the platform's anti-Semitic remarks after taking control of Twitter. On May 16, 2023, Musk was interviewed by the American Consumer and Business Channel. Musk and the host talked about the 2024 U.S. election. The host asked, "Do you regret voting for Biden in the last general election?" Musk replied, I hope we can have a normal person as president, and that's what I want. There's a saying, you can pick a random person from the phone book, and it's better than a Harvard University. The professor manages well. I don't know who said that, but the person who said it must have been a smart guy. I would say it would be great if we could elect a president like that. What Musk said above means that randomly picking someone in the phone book to be the president of the United States is better than Biden. Obviously, this is too slap in the face. Obviously, you are not satisfied with Biden. The host said. Musk said, don't we all want a normal person to be president? Speaking of this, Musk is insinuating that Biden is not even a normal person. If you look at Musk from the perspective of building a community with a shared future for mankind, there is indeed a possibility of being drawn into the pro-China camp. The United States is a country founded by capital, and the attitude of the world's richest man will of course have an impact on the United States. It is the only one in the world to achieve this level of united front work for capitalists. On May 31st, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to pass the debt ceiling bill. After passing the House of Representatives, the bill will be sent to the Senate for a vote, which is expected to be completed by June 5th. The so-called debt ceiling in the United States has long existed in name only. The so-called upper limit means that there is no upper limit. Every game over the debt ceiling has become a tool for the struggle between the two parties. Americans think they are extremely skilled at playing bipartisan politics, but as the hegemony of the United States is shaken, the dividends of hegemony are getting less and less, and the pie that can be divided up by the American elite group is getting smaller and smaller, and internal conflicts have naturally begun to intensify. Cutting off the global blood-sucking and plundering system established by the United States is the best way to detonate internal conflicts in the United States. The outside can't be plundered, and the inside is naturally turbulent. The competition between China and the United States will be a long one. The core of the comparison between the Chinese model and the American model is the institutional advantages. The core of the confrontation between China and the United States is the four major elements of economy, military, technology, and culture. In this long competition, doing everything carefully is the key to winning the future. Welcome, Musk. The CG diagram of the Type 076 amphibious assault ship drawn by netizens based on related papers has caused heated discussions on the internet. If the new two-ship island layout is true, it will make the Type 076 amphibious assault ship with the largest deck area in the world. The pure drone carrying mode also makes 076 unique. There are various indications that 076 is likely to be an epoch-making ship, and China is expected to become the leader of the times. Recently, news about the Type 076 amphibious assault ship has once again become the focus of discussion among many netizens. However, unlike the Fujian ship, which usually becomes the focus of discussion because of the exposure of aerial photos, the reason why 076 will become the focus this time is not because its related photos were exposed, but because of a CG imagination drawn by a netizen. Comparison between the Type 076 amphibious assault ship and the American class. In this CG picture, the Type 076 amphibious assault ship changed the single ship island design in the previous series of imagination pictures, and adopted a double ship island layout similar to the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier. At the same time, the flight deck of the new 076 still uses the same straight-through deck as the traditional amphibious assault ship, rather than the inclined deck design drawn in some imaginary pictures. The elevator also adopts the inboard layout commonly used on amphibious assault ships, rather than the outboard layout similar to aircraft carriers. Of course, there are still some old design elements retained in the CG picture of 076, that is, the electromagnetic catapult on the bow. It can be seen that the fact that the Type 076 amphibious assault ship will use electromagnetic catapults has become the consensus of many netizens. A close-up image of the double ship island of the 076 amphibious assault ship. So here comes the question, why does the CG picture arouse heated discussions among netizens? The reason is also very simple, because the basis of the CG picture is related papers, so it has certain feasibility. At the same time, the 076 presented on this basis has an overall design closer to an amphibious assault ship than a light aircraft carrier. Many viewers may wonder, isn't this 076 an amphibious assault ship? Shouldn't something like an amphibious assault ship be normal? This is mainly because in many viewpoints, the target of the Type 076 amphibious assault ship should be the U.S. Navy's America-class amphibious assault ship. At the moment when the U.S. Navy has successfully verified the feasibility of carrying F-35B fighter jets on the first two ships of the American class, the USS America and the USS Tripoli. Therefore, there is a view that the Type 076 amphibious assault ship must have a similar fixed-wing carrier-based aircraft capability in order to reach the level of the American class in terms of performance. USS America amphibious assault ship equipped with F-35B. Therefore, when relevant bidding documents on the internet revealed that the Type 076 amphibious assault ship was equipped with an electromagnetic catapult, some people subjectively believed that the main purpose of the Type 076 edition of an electromagnetic catapult was to carry fixed-wing carrier-based aircraft. Considering that there is no news that China is developing a vertical takeoff and landing fighter of the same type as the F-35B. So in theory, the fixed-wing carrier-based aircraft that the 076 can carry can only be the J-15 already in service and the J-35 under development. In the end, in the imagination of many people, 076 has gradually changed from an amphibious assault ship to a light aircraft carrier that uses electromagnetic catapults and angled decks and carries J-15B fighter jets. And because the CG picture is not like the 076 that netizens imagined before, it has triggered a series of discussions on the internet about the design direction of 076. Light aircraft carrier version 076 drawn by netizens. At this time, someone must want to ask, which CG picture is closer to the real Type 076 amphibious assault ship? Judging from the information that has been released so far, the latest one is undoubtedly closer to the real 076. Because it meets the PLA's tactical needs for 076 and that electromagnetic catapult. You know, the reason why the PLA will continue to propose the construction of an amphibious assault ship with an electromagnetic catapult when it already has the 075 amphibious assault ship. The reason is indeed, as many netizens think, it is to eject fixed-wing carrier-based aircraft. But what netizens didn't expect was that what the People's Liberation Army wanted to eject from the 076 was not a manned carrier-based aircraft, but an unmanned carrier-based aircraft. Imagination of 076 equipped with unmanned carrier-based aircraft. Because judging from the 075 stock construction time of only 10 months, the docking period of the 076 amphibious assault ship is longer than that of the 075, and it is relatively short compared with the aircraft carrier that takes several years. Allow the People's Liberation Army to quickly pull up a 076 fleet in a short period of time. However, it is useless to have a boat alone. Someone needs to sail the boat. And a ship like Xiang 076 that needs to cooperate with the carrier-based aircraft force to play its role requires not only the crew to drive the ship, but also the pilot to drive the carrier-based aircraft. But the problem is that the training speed of fixed-wing carrier-based aircraft pilots cannot keep up with the construction speed of 076. Once the People's Liberation Army starts to build 076 on a large scale, it will inevitably face a huge talent vacancy in the future. New carrier-based aircraft pilots trained by the Naval Aviation University. And this is why 076 needs to be equipped with carrier-based drones. After all, now that automated and intelligent systems have spread and become popular, it is no longer science fiction to let drones rely on AI to independently complete a series of primary combat tasks and complete advanced combat tasks in human-in-loop mode. This will greatly reduce the need for carrier-based aircraft pilots on the 076 amphibious assault ship, allowing these pilots to take off and soar on a real aircraft carrier. At the same time, since the carrier aircraft has become a drone with a smaller tonnage and size, Many carrier-based aircraft support equipment on the 076 amphibious assault ship can also be simpler. For example, the angled deck that many netizens once imagined is not needed, and the UAV can completely land on the straight deck with the help of the arresting cable. Outboard lifts designed to accommodate larger carrier aircraft can also be replaced with safer and less costly inboard lifts. Imagination map of light aircraft carrier version 076 amphibious assault ship. The island space left by the double ship island design can be used to park carrier-based aircraft like the Queen Elizabeth, and can also be used to park support vehicles. After all, UAVs have no driver coordination, and rely more on the assistance of support vehicles in deck scheduling. As for the Type 076 amphibious assault ship, which roughly adopts a traditional hull configuration and has electromagnetic catapults and unmanned carrier-based aircraft, can it compete with the American class in terms of performance? I don't think this is a problem either. After all, the purpose of the ship is to complete the design indicators and established tasks, not for single-handed fighting beast chess. As long as 076 can complete the tasks assigned to it by the People's Liberation Army, then it is a good ship.